And we are live. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We are looking at the colored magnetogram here. And that's the last 7 hours of solar activity. Sunspot 2738. Continuing to slowly degrade. And any trailing sunspots appear to have kind of evaporated. Let's look at the intensity gram here. So we see that umbra is kind of breaking down there. We see penumbra in the middle of it. And there's some activity going on with those trailing umbrae. But it looks like overall the sunspot group is diminishing in power. There's a lot of filamentary activity going on yesterday. Let's see if it's still happening today. Here's 304 angstroms. Give you the full disk view. And that is the last 7 hours. So it is April 14th, Sunday, and I know which day it is today. The real-time solar wind, as we're trying to keep this one pretty short. And let's refresh. It's refreshing to refresh. And while that loads, I guess I can play some music. How about a track by Arabian Nightmare? This is Chocolate Cake. This song written and produced by Dr. Sam Afif. So we see a recent increase in the BZ, approaching the zero line there. BT is at about 3. And phi angle is now at 340. Solar wind density 3.47 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed dropping down to 364 kilometers per second. Let's look at the gong 2. All right. I would like to note one thing on this if it plays. It's really weird. What are you doing to us, Gong 2? Okay. All right, I'm just going to go to the last frame here because I do want to note something. And that thing is that when you have a sunspot, which is going to be located right around this region, it's going to obscure some of the fields. So because this has such a strong field, we don't see any lines here. You understand that? Does that make sense? And this is a typical thing we always see when we see sunspots on this view. And with the Gong 2, you can actually request old data. So just come up here if you want to look at this. We do keep links in the description. And I believe they are already copy-pasted there. Let me bring up the chat here. This track called Gas Chamber, also by Arabian Nightmare, aka Dr. Steelshank. And let me break out the chat. See who's joined us, if anybody. I see no chats. All right. That's what happens when you broadcast at 3 o'clock in the morning, folks. Okay, so we're at spaceweather.com here. 10.7 centimeter radio flux has actually dropped down to 78. Still well above forecasts. Is it going to continue to drop? Or are we already off the solar minimum? Here's that bridge we were talking about. That penumbra going across the central umbra there. Hundreds of Texas-sized granules. So that's a great image there, a nice close-up of the sunspot, taken by a backyard observatory in Trenton, Florida. Nicely done. All right, now before we move on, I want to talk about a fundamental misunderstanding of how black holes work. We're going to put a cosmology section right here because this needs to be talked about. I'm going to cut the music way down for a minute. All right, so here's a channel that we watch. That's not the channel we watch. That is a channel I watch, but oh, it's down here. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is a 60 symbols video, and I want you to listen to what this guy says. Now, he's talking about this image of M87's active galactic nucleus, the massive radio source at the core of galaxy M87. Now watch what he says.
I mean, there was a lot of structure there as well. It looks like there's something that points out this way as well.
Now, what he's talking about here are jets coming out of the galactic nucleus. And that is a thing. Jets usually are coming out of these active galactic nuclei. In fact, all of them.
Which I'm kind of intrigued by. And again, one of the things that might be expected is you might expect jets of material to be flying out.
You see the way he's pointing? He's pointing perpendicular across that photo. Now, let's go back to the zoom in that they showed earlier in the video, which is a fantastic zoom in of M87.
A blurry image of something really exciting is probably pretty exciting itself.
All right, so here it is.
Another thing to mention, which is that there's another.
Right, that's not it.
Actually, observe two objects. So they'll observe the object in the middle of the Milky Way, which is this.
He's talking about Sagittarius A star.
The sun. They also were looking at the black hole in the middle of a much bigger galaxy, Messier 87.
Now, here's the zoom. And if you look at this image, you can clearly see the jet right here. That is the jet coming out of the pole, which is nearly facing toward our solar system. How he doesn't understand that these jets come out of the poles, I can't comprehend. But you heard that, right? He was pointing across the, quote, accretion disk, end quote. In other words, that donut-like photo. Here's the zoom in.
Which is several thousand times further away. So actually,
here's a zoom out of Messier 87.
Images will be several thousand times poorer because you're trying to look at something further away, so everything's much smaller. But the black hole.
All right, let me get to the zoom in here because the point of this is not to hear this guy talk. 60 Symbols is a great channel, by the way, and I highly suggest that you watch it. But this is classical astronomy, and there is a fundamental lack of understanding of everything from redshift to how these things actually physically operate. So anyway, you saw him pointing right there. He thinks that the jets will be coming out of the sides when, I mean, this thing, here's your donut-shaped black hole, your quote black hole, end quote. The jet is coming out toward you like this. I mean, the picture zooms right in on it. I mean, it's blatantly clear where the jet is. And this is like equivalent to having a pencil stuck through a record and expecting the jets to be coming across the grooves. So, all right, let's end this segment and move on to some more actual data at spaceweathernews.com. And is it going to load or is it going to not load? All right, thanks. Sweet. Oh, geez. All right. So we see a couple of X-ray flares there in the B range recently kicking off. Magnetometer's looking like it's not updated on spaceweathernews.com. There's the current data. Nothing too extravagant going on there. Things looking pretty normal. Here is the electron flux, also not updated at spaceweathernews.com. There's the current data. Had a little spike in X-ray and electron flux yesterday, but nothing really to speak of. You saw me hit refresh, right? All right, just checking. Here's the F2 layer because we got to get off this page as soon as possible because it's not loading right. Somebody's servers are not appreciating the 3 o'clock in the morning live stream. Here's the current F2 ionosphere layer, and it's looking pretty discharged on the night side and pretty charged on the day side. Here's the location of your planets in the solar system. And nothing seems to be refreshed today, folks, and for that, we apologize. Here's where the planets will be in 7 days. Every single click I'm doing today is requiring 2 clicks to complete. Here's the active region breakdown on solarham.net. We do see a little magnetism right here. So we'll be watching that throughout the day. And right here, we'll be watching those areas to see if they form into opposite polarity sunspots, greatly increasing the chance of solar flares and coronal mass ejections. Let's move on to magnetosphere movies as my computer battles me every moment of the way. So we see a very weak magnetosphere here, and that is because of the very low solar wind speed and density. We'll let that play through. And let's just look at the still images of the density and the velocity before we move on to ground perturbations here, geospace ground perturbations. So we don't see a lot of perturbations, and that's not really any surprise at all. We do view this data every day because it is not accessible. So if you're not ripping this data all the time off of the internet, you're not going to be able to see old data. So we look at it every day, so at least our viewers get about 4 hours. Because we're trying to correlate a lot of multidisciplinary stuff together on this channel. If you want to hear the nonprofits mission that we've just recently begun, check out yesterday's video. For those of you not aware of the pole situation, we have 2 north poles, one here and one here. Your compass will point here. The product of those 2 poles and the south pole is seemingly migrating toward Western Australia. And let's move on to whatever the next tab is. We're going to skip cosmic rays for today. We'll look at the visible on the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard to help to encourage our viewers to look at good data. There's sunspot 2738. We do see a little activity around it there, so that's something to keep an eye on throughout the day. Next, we'll look at the total electron content as I use GPS daily, and this will tell you what your errors will be. And this is usually pretty accurate, even when your GPS is not that accurate. So if you're in Florida, you're looking at about 4 meters of GPS errors today. Anyway, there's your total electron content forecast. Let's look at 24 hours of earthquakes. You see a 4.4 in Russia, 4.4 in Mexico, 4.6 in Japan, 5.2 in Papua New Guinea. Bit of an uptick there. 4.6 at Japan. 5.2 at Papua New Guinea. 4.8 at Papua New Guinea. Here's a 4.7 at Indonesia. 5.0 at Japan. 5.3 at India. 4.9 at India. Seen some activity there the past 2 days. 4.8 at Indonesia at depth, suggesting a larger quake may occur at the surface. 4.9 at Tonga. 4.5 at Indonesia. Bit of a ring of fire uptick. 4.4 at India. 4.0 at depth in Tajikistan. Here's a 5.0 at India. 4.5 at India. 4.5 at Indonesia. 4.6 at India. 5.2 at Japan. 4.5 at Mexico. And the largest quake in a considerable period of time at Kala'awa. Kala'awa, Hawaii. I think I pronounced it right. Anyway, here is the location. And we are on the Big Island. Nowhere near Kilauea, folks. Nowhere near Kilauea. Not too far from Pu'uwawa. We also see a 4.4 at El Salvador at depth. This map is my pal. I heart this map. 4.4 at Fillmore, Utah. 4.8 at Japan. 4.8 at Japan. 4.7 at Japan. And a 4.9 at Japan. Let's go to windy.com and check our low pressure systems. All right, that's it. I'm going to settings, and I'm getting rid of this before your very eyes. All right, Windy, I don't know what your problem is, but you're going to stop doing that immediately. I don't know why it's doing it. All right, forget it. We're going to zoom out. We're going to look at low pressure systems here. First of all, we see a very powerful one right over the New Madrid fault line, actually. Look at that. Right on the New Madrid. A massive low. Also, we see some very odd patterns here over places like Montana. But let's look at South America for low pressure systems there. This might represent some danger, this low pressure here. Otherwise, it's looking fairly smooth there. Now, as far as the Papua New Guinea area, there are some lows located right there. Places like Vanuatu. That would be the greatest risk for quakes in that area. And Oh my gosh, please. All right, forget it, Wendy. You are out of here, Wendy. Oh my gosh. What is up with this? Go away. In fact, you are shut down. Wendy.com. They've got a great mobile app, by the way, which works better than the one on the PC, apparently. Let's check lightningmaps.org to see where the bolts are coming down. And we see some major lightning strikes in the US. Let's zoom in. Do we have any chatters? Oh my goodness. Wow. Good morning, smAsho staff and Gray Horse. Thanks for tuning in. Oh boy. All right. There's your lightning map. If you're not familiar with lightningmaps.org, check it out. If you got lightning going on above your head right now, zoom in. It will give you some predictive value of where the next strike is going to be, where it's going, and it might make you a little safer. Here's a US Doppler radar map. And me, oh my, is it early. Zoom it out so you can see the timestamps. As most of our viewers will be watching this later. There are the timestamps. So heavy rain. Make sure you have your kayaks and your life vests ready if you're in those areas. Look at this insane convergence line here, as that is totally bizarre. So let's look at the shortwave animation. This is how you see clouds and fog at nighttime, folks. Use a shortwave radiation map. Let's see what's going on with this crazy line. I swear, half of the keystrokes I'm doing today are not working. I don't understand why. I think this PC needs a reboot because it's too good to boot out the window. So we have this 1,500-mile long line stretching from Florida across Mexico. Very odd and very energy from space-like a giant Hall current is there. Let's look at the water vapor map, as that looked pretty bizarre too. Oh yeah, there's some major compression going on. All right, let's show you the animation of this also as a value-added service, as there's some heavy weather going on, and maybe this will help somebody out. I know there's a lot of people without power in Texas. We'll get to it in a moment. Anyway, there's the water vapor map, and it's not going fast enough. Nothing's going fast enough today, folks. Now, as a bike racer, I try to do everything as slowly as possible when not bike racing. And that's one to grow on. Anyway, there's the water vapor map. We see this crazy convergence line, this line of moist air here, just right in the middle of all this dry air. Very anomalous, very anomalous. Shout out if you're watching, Howard. How are things going? All right, let's move on before we're all old and gray, as this video is getting too long. Volcanoes? Volcano update. Volcanoes today. Kluchevskoy with a 17,000-foot plume. Shivaluch with a 13,000-foot plume. Abiko with a 10,000-foot plume. Carinci with a 14,000-foot plume. Popocatépetl back to emitting ash according to satellite imagery. Revenador, frequent emissions, and Sabancaya, continuous emissions. So a little volcanic uptick since yesterday. Stereo A, Core 2 Space Weather Beacon update. We show you this every day because of the possibility of coronal mass ejections. Remember, folks, you don't actually need any kind of a solar flare for a coronal mass ejection to occur. Sometimes the sun lets go of plasma filaments and ejects them into space without any kind of solar flares. Believe it or not, it's true. Now, part of the reason we make this channel is to immerse ourselves in the data every day. Because when you do that, oftentimes you figure things out that nobody else knew. And we actually see a bunch of plasma sticking out here from south of that sunspot. You see it's coming way out, but it's being held in the corona by magnetic fields. Magnetic fields, they make the universe go round, folks. Believe it or not. And I don't know why we have this on the screen. I showed this the last 2 days. If you're not familiar with Cygnus X3, please read about it. One of the most reliable cosmic ray sources in the galaxy. Here are the transients. We're going to be showing these every day until this data changes. Because, okay. Well, there must have been some anomalous data, folks, because this is like totally different than it was. All right, let's just move on. Now, that gentleman from 60 Symbols was telling you that the jets would be coming out of the torus this way, and that's not the way it works, as that is the B field, and this is the Z field, along which the image was zoomed. So the zoom in comes right along the jet, and this guy thinks the jets are going to be coming out radially. So I don't understand what he's talking about, except that he doesn't know what he's talking about. And hey, we're not trying to defame or discredit anybody. We just want a unified theory of physics. It's part of the reason why this channel exists. Oh, in any case, and this is Cygnus A, by the way. We're not going to talk about this strongest radio source in the entire sky, second only to the sun. We're going to instead talk about smAsho.org. Because by the end of the year, your donations to the channel will be tax deductible. Now, if you're going to sponsor me as a cyclist, head to this page, GoFundMe.com/whatever. There's links in the description. And we've raised a couple bucks here, looking to raise $5,500 by May 1st. And if you're a corporate sponsor, or if you're a personal sponsor, email me at smashomash@gmail.com. We'll talk about things like ad space and the team. So let's segue to theveloshop.net, tell you a little bit about who's on the team, who else is on the team. How about Kim Geist on her way to the Olympics? Here's a list of her accomplishments. And she is currently wearing a world champion jersey, I believe, for the team sprint. There's also Kim Zubris on screen right here. I believe this was for the Madison. This is a world championship for the Madison. Oh, national championship for the Madison. And they are currently on the world champion jersey wearing Olympic sprint team. So some of our athletes at the Velo Shop. Head to theveloshop.net for all your cycling needs. Regarding the nonprofit organization, I'm going to quickly read the mission. It's pretty complicated, but hey, sometimes stuff's complicated. The mission is 1, to assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics. 2, to raise the awareness of the general public of the relationship between space weather and Earth effects. 3, to connect and consult with media organizations to multiply our reach, which is already going on, by the way. 4, to demonstrate cutting-edge proof-of-concept solutions to problems, which is already going on, by the way. 5, to publish scientific papers in a multidisciplinary manner, including sciences such as spectroscopy, chemistry, astrophysics, health, wellness, longevity, cosmology, biology, magnetohydrodynamics, geology, etc. 6, to assist mankind by advancing the study of predictive phenomena in order to optimize value, reduce risk/liability, save lives and resources, and adapt no matter what the adversity is. And last but not least at all, to not be ossified in our beliefs and to treat those who are with love, respect, and inclusion to the scientific discussion. We're not trying to get anybody thrown out of their fields, folks. We're trying to get a unified theory of physics. News piece from the Watchers.news. Significant injuries, damage. Texas. Significant injuries and damage to Texas after a tornado strikes yesterday. 75,000 plus people without power. So have a disaster plan, folks. Have a disaster plan. Let's go back to the sun before we open up the chat. Get a little more data here. And we'll look at the sun on 171 angstroms, and then we will get out of here as there are a lot of things to do today. All right, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's get a zoom here. A nice zoom in on the sunspot 2738, as it is now just leaving the Earth-facing region. Something to keep an eye on throughout the day. And hey, have a lovely Sunday. We may be coming back at you later this afternoon, depending on how everything works out. So, best wishes. May the solar wind be at your back, the atherosclerosis absent from your veins, and when you're staring at sunspots, when you're staring at sunspot 2738, don't drink. And if you drink, stare at sunspot 2738 through the proper instruments such as the SDO. Just don't drive.